Um, Hi again. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Sydney Ellison. I am the programs manager here at Baxter Street. Um, I'm in the gallery in Manhattan, New York, and just to give a little bit of a visual description, I am a woman with light skin and dark hair and dark eyes in my mid-20s. I am so excited for this conversation. Um, and I will be providing the introduction to this conversation between our 2024 Baxter Street Guest Curatorial Open Call recipients, Ezra Benus and Kevin Quiles Bonilla, and our invited guests, Stephanie Alvarado, Noah Benus, and Keishla Quiles Bonilla. Kevin's solo exhibition, which was curated by Ezra, A Small Patch of Sand, Yet It Holds So Much, will be on view in our main gallery space at 126 Baxter Street through July 31st. So if you haven't made it yet, you should come out and see it in the next couple weeks. This program, our guest curatorial program, is made possible by the Philip and Edith Leonian Foundation. And this project specifically is made possible in part with funds from Creative Engagement, a re-grant program by the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council and administrated by the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. So I'm going to introduce Kevin and Ezra, and then I'm going to hand it over to Shraddha, our community outreach coordinator, to introduce the rest of our participants. Kevin Quiles Bonilla is an interdisciplinary artist born in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Through photography, performance, and installation, his works explore ideas around power, colonialism, and history with his identity as context. He received a bachelor's in fine arts from the University of Puerto Rico in 2015 and a master's in fine arts from Parsons The New School for Design in 2018. He has presented his work at Brooklyn Museum, Queens Museum, Lincoln Center, and Ford Foundation. Recent solo shows include Real Artways in Hartford, Connecticut, Wave Hill Public Garden and Cultural Center in the Bronx. His first public artwork for Centuries and Still, made in collaboration with artist Zach Landsberg, was presented through New York City Parks in 2022. He has been an artist in residence at the Arts and Disability Residency, LMCC Workspace Residency, Infoco, Photography Fellowship, Emerge NYC, Smack Melon Artist Studio Program, Manera Foundation, and LMCC Arts Center Residency in Governor's Island. His work has been featured in Hyperallergic, The Washington Post, Bomb Magazine, and The Guardian. He lives and works between New York and Puerto Rico. Ezra Benus' practice is cradled by embedded Jewishness, queerness, and sickness as purviews and navigational tools in this world. They are an artist, educator, and curator raised and still based in Brooklyn, whose multimedia practice concerns constructions of values of normativity, relationships and intimacies of power, care, pain, and pleasure. Ezra has had residencies with Art Beyond Sights, Art and Disability Residency, Wave Hill Winter Workspace, Shift Residency at Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts, Brick Lab Contemporary Art at Brick, and most recently, Ezra had a two-person exhibition with Finnegan Shannon at Perlman Teaching Museum in Minnesota. He has exhibited work in New York City with NYU Gallatin Gallery, Pratt Manhattan Gallery, Deadless Foundation, EFA Project Space, The Shed, and internationally with Shape Arts in the UK, Museone in Italy, MMK Frankfurt in Germany, Doris McCarthy Gallery in Canada, and Art Gallery Windsor, also in Canada. Curatorial projects and programs include Locus, Art as Disabled Space, My Body is the House That We Live, Disability Futures Virtual Festival, Crypt Ecologies of Emergent Pain, Crypt Art Ecologies, Fermenting Crypt Desire, Brief Celebration, and Rage. Ezra is also one half of Brothers Sick, a sibling artistic collaboration on disability justice, illness, spirituality, and care. Commissioned published works include Blackwood Gallery's SDUK, Lingering in Kingdom of the Ill Reader, published by Hotchkiss Verlag, Their work has been featured and reviewed in publications such as Artform, Pinup, Moose Magazine, Ocula, Art Agenda, Publico Espilon, and Weltkunst. I am now going to hand it over to Shraddha, and thank you all for coming.
Hi, I'm Shraddha Kochar, and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator here at Baxter St. I'm a brown woman in my 20s with black hair, black bangs on my forehead. I'm wearing a white t-shirt and I'm sitting in front of a bookshelf with some photo books. I'm so thrilled to sort of introduce Keishla, Stephanie, and Noah. Stephanie Alvarado is an anti-disciplinary archivist, artist, activist, and poet. Alvarado is a queer, disabled, non-binary femme born and raised in the Bronx, New York, by way of Guayaquil, Ecuador. Their artist practice project, Photos y Recuerdos, is an offering for queer, trans, Black, and brown people to build community photo archives, witnessing our personal stories, and remember for those who cannot, while taking up space both on public lands and virtual spaces. Keishla Quiles Bonilla is a writer born and raised in Puerto Rico. Her work ranges from fiction to nonfiction and poetry. Through her writing, she explores ideas around identity, gender, sexuality, and familial relations. Noah Benus is a New York City-based educator and artist with the focus on engaging students in both analog and digital media. He uses photography to explore politics and people through the prism of relationships with each other, with environments, and with the camera itself. Noah is one half of Brothers Sick, a sibling artistic collaboration on disability justice, illness, and care. I can hand this over to Ezra.
Great. Thank you, everyone. This is Ezra speaking. I am a white Ashkenazi Jewish person. I have some scruff on my face, and I'm black curly hair, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt. And my background is just a blurry white room with the blurred Zoom background. I'm really excited to have everyone here. The way that we're going to move through this program together is we're going to start with a presentation. Everyone's going to share a bit about their works for about 5 to 7 minutes. And then we're going to move into a brief discussion of some prepared questions that everyone can have a chance here to answer and ask each other some more questions if that comes up. And then we'll move into a question and answer from the audience if there are any. The format too is I'm going to ask everyone to just give a brief visual description as well as a visual description of any of the images that are going to be shared. And if anyone needs anything repeated or clarified in the audience or on the panel, please write in the chat and someone will let us know. So that's where we're going to begin. So Shraddha, if you can share the slideshow, we'll just start that way and it'll be passed to Kevin first. This is just this is just the title slide, a small patch of sand yet it holds so much. That's black text on a white background. Kevin Quiles Bonilla, curated by Ezra Benus, in conversation with Stephanie Alvarado, Keishla Quiles Bonilla, Noah Benus. We go to the next slide and Kevin, take it away.
Thank you so much, Ezra. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Quiles Bonilla. I am a 31-year-old brown person. I have curly black hair. I have black eyeglasses. I have small white headphones in my ears. I have a blue shirt, and behind me is a bookshelf to my left. And then there's some windows to the right that are shining a lot of light behind me. And I am coming to you from Manhattan, also known as the land of the Lenape. And yeah, thank you so much for being here today, for taking a little bit of your early afternoon to be here with us. I saw some familiar names on the people that are here, so thank you so much. And also thank you to Ezra, the curator extraordinaire, and to the panelists, to Noah, to to Stephanie, and to Keishla, my sister Keishla, for joining us as well. We can go to the next slide. Start speaking a little bit. Thank you so much. Okay, before I start, I do wanted to say a little bit of an acknowledgement to a entity very near and dear to my sister and my heart. Our doggy Nanny passed away yesterday. She was with us for 16 years. So wherever you are, thank you so much. Okay, so the first image in the screen is an installation view of one of the bodies of work in the series, titled Islotes. It has a brown wooden table. On top of it are 11 archival photographs with brown frames dispersed throughout the table, and all of them are intervened with sand. Some are fully covered, creating a topography on top of the bodies, and some have a very thin layer, allowing for some visibility of the subjects. So I wanted to kind of focus my time speaking in this presentation about this body of works, given that it's my most recent body of work. And I believe it's really kind of what led to the inception of this conversation. So this body of work, I began working on it in 2022. When I went back home on the holidays, that's usually the time that I get to go back to see my family and to see how everything is back home. And I began the exercise of kind of collecting a lot of the photographs from my family's photo album. And when I started this, it wasn't necessarily with the intention of I'm going to create artwork out of these photographs. It kind of came from the necessity of conserving them. Initially, I kind of requested both my immediate family, my mom, she's the one that has stored in our house all of most of the photographs that are in color, that they date back to like the 1990s and kind of cover the timeline from when we were born, my sister and I, onwards. And then I also contacted my extended family, specifically my aunts who live in the house that belonged to my grandmother, and they also kind of have a more extended archive that kind of even dates back to almost the 1950s and kind of cover a chunk of their lives from before we were born. And this was a series of photographs that I had wanted to see for a really long time. I remember speaking to my grandmother before she passed that, I want to see these photographs. I want to see you when you were a young woman. I want to see photos of my mom and my aunts when they were kids. So there was always that like insistence to kind of have an access to this archive. And always I kind of always received stories from like different people, like they were at different spaces. They tried to find them but wouldn't be able to or couldn't find them. And eventually this kind of became the year of 2022 where I was able to gain access to a small portion of them. And at the time I was doing a residency at Macmillan, and I had a lot of resources to be able to properly scan them digitally. I was also taking into consideration the weather conditions in the island. A lot of the older photographs are in the countryside. So humidity, the heat, could more easily deteriorate these photographs. And so that was sort of the anchor that I used to be able to gain access to these photographs and sort of explain to them, we really need to maintain these archive, for myself and for the generations to come. And so I brought this selection and I was able to scan them and reproduce them. And once I returned them, I began very organically kind of engaging with them. Sand was a material that was already present in my studio and in my practice. There was a small installation in the exhibition where I used sand as a sculptural material to create fortress walls. And this is based on the children's sandcastle walls that are sold, to play on the beach. And it became kind of this metaphor of thinking about colonialism as this structural entity that kind of begins this sort of line of lived experiences from a very early age. So to me, it kind of seemed very fitting, kind of mixing these two materials that often should not be together, but see what that mixture would create. And it really was a process of a lot of trial and error, looking what was the right adhesive, what was the right method to applying the sand. And at the core of it, and also kind of speaking contextually, I was thinking a lot about the formation of islands. And I was thinking a lot about the archipelago. Puerto Rico itself is an archipelago. And often those smaller islands are never recognized on maps, or because the majority of them are part of the US reserve, so they're uninhabited. But I was deeply drawn to the idea of this community of islands that are seem separated from above, but underwater are all interconnected. And to me, that kind of became the metaphor for this body of work. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So this is Islotes Perpetual Vaivén, Empty Plain to Florida. It depicts, it's a photograph from July 12, 1998, as listed in the smaller captions below in orange. It's a photograph of airplane inside an airplane circa 1990s, and it shows a small individual fully covered in sand, creating a topography on top of it. So I essentially began to kind of cover the outlines of the bodies until a topography or an islote was created on top of them. And it became this metaphor to think about genealogy, to thinking about these connections, to thinking about geographic dislocation and separation. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. This is Islotes, La Muchachita Ramos, Mommy's 6th grade photograph. This is a photograph of my mom when she was 11 years old. And it depicts a young girl in a black and white background. She's wearing a sleeveless white shirt, and there is a thin layer of sand covering her body, which still makes it visible. Initially, when I was doing these interventions, I was thinking of fully covering the bodies, but when I started applying this first layer, I was very, very drawn to kind of the ghostly figure that it created, and kind of still allowed certain details of the figure to be present. And so to me, that also kind of added to the slow formation of an island. It kind of starts from the eruption of an underwater volcano, and a small patch of soil sort of appears to the surface, and it grows until the topography is created and an island is formed. And can we go to the next slide? Thank you. And so at the core, this installation, which I think serves as a preview, the pieces in view are only 11 of them, but I've created almost 50 of them so far. It kind of just became this very therapeutic and almost cathartic process. Feature members of my family in different stages of their life, both in the present and in the past. Members that I didn't get to meet, but that I heard of. For example, this photograph in here, this is Abuela Monse. This is my sister Keishla and my great-grandmother, who we never met but heard many, many stories. And this was her first time visiting the Vega Baja beach, which then became the beach that my mom would take my sister and I, and we still go to every single year. And if you go to the exhibition, another body of works, the carryover series, also features the Vega Baja beach. So almost the formations of mountains behind her, you can kind of see the culmination of those mountains in the following photographs. So there's both a contextual, but also like a literal kind of visual thread that connects the works in the exhibition. I think my time is done. Thank you, Ezra. If we can go to the following slide, I just wanted to show before I leave kind of the topography that I'm kind of speaking about. That really, it's best viewed when viewed in person. So I invite everyone, if you have a chance, to stop by the gallery and see it for yourselves. And yeah, once again, thank you so much. And I'm so excited to pass it over to my sister, Keishla. Thank you so much.
Hi, hello, my name is Keishla. I am a 32-year-old Latina person. I am wearing a white shirt with a strawberry pattern. I am sitting behind a pink concrete wall. My hair is curly and is half up, half down. I'm wearing glasses and pink lipstick. And I'm coming to you from Puerto Rico, the island also known as the land of the Tainos. So I wrote a poem called Topography for this work of art, this works, and I'm gonna be reading it later on. The poem is very connected to this body of work from Kevin. I've been watching Kevin and his work grow throughout the years. We've had a very close relationship since we were little. I have a muscular dystrophy. I don't know how you say it in English, pero distrofia muscular, SMA2, and that kind of made our relationship more intricate since he kind of became a caregiver to me too. And we've always been going to the same schools. We've also went to the same college for a bachelor's degree. We even took some classes together. So I've been watching him grow as an artist in his works. So when he asked me to kind of join in this project, I was very excited because it had to do with family, which is something that I also explore in my works, both in fiction and in poetry, and also identity, which is another topic that I really like to explore. So I kind of took that and wrote this poem in which I kind of want to say that I have a little bit of me, but mostly of Kevin, and the way that I see he interprets his work. And yeah, I really hope you guys like it. I'm gonna be reading it later on. And yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I feel really honored to be working with so many great artists. And yeah, I'm gonna lead the word to the next artist who's gonna be speaking. Noah, yeah, Noah Benus.
Before we do so, thank you, Keisha, so much. That was so sweet. Can we go back to the previous slide? I just want to give a visual description of the work.
Oh yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay, no worries. So the piece is titled, it's another piece from the Islotes series. It's titled Islotes, Their Other Became Their Bond, Keishla and Kevin on a hammock. And it features two individuals sitting on a hammock on top of a green meadow. Both of their bodies are fully covered in sand until the topography is created on top. Yeah, thank you again, Keishla. Take it away, Noah.
Hi, my name is Noah Benus. I'm wearing a a white Ashkenazi man, dark hair. I look similar to Ezra since he is my brother. I have straight hair and a thicker beard. I'm wearing a blue button-down shirt, and I'm sitting in front of a window and a mirror, and there's some plants and a clock in my background. I wanted to describe a little bit of how my practice has evolved using archives and using kind of family as a medium in my work. But I wanted to initially describe the two chemograms, which are a alternative photo process. There are two grayscale images with X-rays on the screen, and these are actually what I consider self-portraits. And this was a really pivotal moment in my art practice, using medical scans as kind of my personal archive. And this project of using X-rays from my body really informed how I was thinking about family portraits and how I was thinking about my family and Ezra and my family's archives. Since we come from a family with extensive illness and medical history, I realized that the hospitals and doctors actually had the most comprehensive archives available of our families. And we don't necessarily have all that information, and we're not necessarily privy to all of the notes and all of the archives spanning from when we were kids, and even from our grandparents and our parents. We don't really have access to those. So I was really considering what it would look like to reinterpret medical scans and medical images and medical documentation as portraits and as archives. So this was in, I believe, 2018 when I started this project. And this was concurrent. This was happening at the same time. If you go to the next slide, this was happening at the same time where I started another project where I was documenting and archiving my medical treatment, my brother's medical treatment, Ezra, and my father's medical treatment. And I was thinking about what it would look like, what it looks like, and how we consider what elements we're saving and sharing, and how we're creating a realistic archive and realistic histories to be shared in the future. And so if you can see these are two black and white images. These were of me sitting in a hospital chair. You can see in the left image my arm with an IV, and it is reaching upward to the medicine. And in the right, in the picture on the right, it's another black and white image with the nurse's two hands holding up my medication, my IV solution. And you may not be able to see in this image, but it has my name, my birthday, and it is truly an archive. It is quite literally a piece, a document of the time, of the place, and of what I was going through. And what was really interesting about these two photos, I actually had invited my older sister to participate and come photograph me while I was getting my medical treatment, which is something that I don't think she has really considered as being part of my art practice, but it certainly was important for me to share a very intimate moment. But it was also fun because the sibling dynamic of, me sitting in a hospital infusion chair, and then my older sister kind of directing me while I'm directing her while the nurses are working. So this was just one element of this like father like son project. And if you can go to the next slide, this is really where the project culminated. And this kind of set me on a path to working with Ezra more intentionally. On the left, there's a black and white portrait of my father sitting in an undershirt, and he's smiling, looking at the camera. The second photo is another black and white image of Ezra looking and measuring out his medication, looking at a syringe. And in the third, smaller photo is a portrait of Ezra on the left, my father, and myself, all sitting wearing the same undershirt, or we're all wearing a similar undershirt. We're not wearing the same one. And we're against a wall. And this photo, the small photo on the right, really became, I guess, like an album cover for what the project was going to morph into. I ended up interviewing Ezra and my father and myself, and created a little 5-minute video that went along with these photos. After I initially started this project, I kind of put these photos into the archive because I didn't really know what to do with them. And then if we go to the next slide, Ezra and I started, next slide, please. Ezra and I started working more, like I said, more intentionally together. So I took one of those photos from that original archive project. And if you can see on the left, it's a photo of Ezra lying down with his arm kind of stretched and levitating a little bit or hovering over the table. And I zoomed into that photo and took and cropped it and then overlaid that and created with Ezra one of our I guess, foundational pieces, An Army of the Sick Can't Be Defeated, which really was the inception of our collaborative practice of Brother Sick. So it was really interesting for me to take kind of a more personal project where I was documenting and I was creating just, I want to say, portraits and creating memories and archives of myself and my sibling and my father kind of going through illness and going through those routines and rituals, and then transforming those archives, like creating these actual these physical documents, and then making art from those works. And if we go to the next slide as well, there's another example. Again, these are two photos. The one on the left is one of the source images. I have many of these copies. It's not the exact one, but it's 3 pill bottles. One's my pill bottle, and my father's pill bottle, and one's Ezra's pill bottle, laying on a bed. And then in the image on the right, we overlaid text, which is "Right to Rest in the Rhythm of the Sick," with the similar image of those 3 pill bottles on a bed. So really referencing my own archives to create a new body of work was something really important, especially thinking about how the future of these archives would live and how the images would be meant not just for me, but for other people to relate to kind of this project. And then I think I have one more slide after this. And yes, this is a new iteration of what is going to be a project that Ezra and I are currently working on. But the image of the left is me sitting behind candlesticks with lit candles, a box that says the word in Hebrew tzedakah, which translates to mutual aid, charity or mutual aid. And there's some other Jewish ritual items such as phylacteries or tefillin, with a biohazard box. And these are portraits. And on the right is a double exposure portrait of the same setting with Ezra and I kind of as ghost images. And really thinking about what it means to create not photographs or not portraits that are in a medical setting, but really being intentional and thinking more about how family photos should be posed and what is important, what symbols, what objects, and what rituals are meaningful both to me and to my family, and what it looks like, what it really looks like to create a family album as an archive. And I really like what Keishla was describing with like a sibling being there for your caretaker. That's something that really resonated with me, is that Ezra is my older brother, but I was able to kind of witness and experience his illness with him, both seeing it as a sibling and then also going through some of those similar symptoms and treatments, and being able to share in that experience so that we can care for each other. And I think part of creating this archive and part of this project and my photo, part of using the photography as a medium, is not just a document, but also a way to share and care. So thank you.
Hola, saludos, buenas tardes. Me llamo Stephanie Alvarado. Un placer estar aquí con todos. Saludos a todos que están viendo ahora de su casa, de la cocina, de donde quiera, en el tren, en el mueble. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Alvarado. I'm just saying hi, good afternoon, and welcome to all those tuning in from your kitchen, from your couch, from wherever, in the train. Welcome to this beautiful conversation that we're having. This is Stephanie speaking. I use she, they pronouns. I am a light brown skin Latina person. I have short curly hair, and it's giving kind of like my sister said it's giving T-Boz in the 90s a little bit. So it's giving that vibe. I have several gold necklaces on. One is my name chain, very much name chain as archive. And I have like black heart earrings on. I have several colorful rings on. My background, you see some synths and keyboards. My partner is a producer and DJ extraordinaire. So you see a lot of their equipment behind me, as well as to my right, there's like sunshine hitting me to my right. There's a TV to my left, some plants and books in the background. And my shirt is like a navy blue with like a white trim. So, okay, there goes the visual descriptions. I'm going to share about my experience working with Kathleen Cleaver's Family Archive, and I will also then share how that inspired my own archival work and the role of family in that as well. But I couldn't begin this conversation without acknowledging the work that I started with Kathleen Cleaver back in 2015. These images that you see, there are two color images, and then the one on the right is a black and white image of Kathleen, myself, Sierra King, as well as Holly Smith. These are all collaborators and co-curators of Kathleen's archive. We were actually doing a trip to Spelman. If anybody's been to the Spelman archives, they're incredible. Definitely go. And we're actually visiting Audre Lorde's archives in these images. So I wanted to start off this conversation with grounding not only family, but also chosen family, and also specifically working in Black and Brown communities and lifting up Black women revolutionaries in family contexts, right? Because Kathleen Cleaver is an icon from the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, and we often see her life as like a revolutionary posing with a gun and the fro and the berets, and all which she curated, by the way. All that was her as the first Secretary of Communications for the party. And so when she and I met in 2015, I was studying at Emory at the time. She was guest lecturing at Emory, and she asked me to help her begin her archive. It was the first time that she had all her materials in one place. And it began with her picking me up from my apartment where I was staying in Atlanta. We drive to her house, we'd eat lunch, and we sit in her attic and literally go through thousands and thousands of family photographs of hers. So I want to name the vulnerability, the trust, the care, the repair that goes into building family archives and including chosen family. As a queer person, my relationship with my family has been very fraught. And in doing the work in archives, it has taught me how to repair with those relationships as well and to build relationships and community. And so my work with Kathleen is going on 10 years, and we were able to get her archive acquired by Emory. We're currently curating a traveling exhibition to showcase her as a whole person. Not only her as a revolutionary, but her as a grandmother, as a mother, as someone who vacations, as someone who is just relaxing, having a full life aside from who we know her to be. And I think this is really important when speaking about our living revolutionaries, our living Black women revolutionaries, specifically like Kathleen Cleaver, and also working within archives like Audre Lorde. So looking to Black women archives as an example of how chosen family and family connections outside of the biological family in this case are so crucial when remembering, when documenting, when preserving. One of the interesting things that we found in Audre Lorde's archive is also her locks. So it took another Black woman to understand that saving Audre Lorde's locks is really important. And I would recommend reading Holly Smith's article that I don't know if we could share it afterwards, but it's called a, give me a second while I read this. I'll put in my notes here. 4 minutes. Okay, sorry. I'll share the article afterwards. So that's Kathleen. And that's, you know, what started all of this off. That's what inspired this work. You going on next one? The next one too? Okay, so with the last 4 minutes I have left, I just want to share how Fotos y Recuerdos came about. That's my mom in the middle, archiving in my studio at Wave Hill. And so after many years of not speaking, after I came out, my mom and I repaired our relationship through archiving my baby pictures and our family pictures. And so to the left, there's an image of my mother and my sister Kayla at St. Anselm School in the South Bronx. This was like her pre-K graduation. So this is like super early 90s and very South Bronx with the brick wall and the graffiti is just so good. So we found that picture together, and it was through our documentation of these family pictures that we were able to repair our relationship. And my family, my early memories, I don't have many because it's really fraught with a lot of violence in my family. So it also speaks to how the archive can also document things that you don't want to remember and also remember, and the things that are tough to talk about. And we were able to cross those bridges, and my mom was able to access those memories despite her own like violent experiences with my father and my own experiences with violence in the family. So it really was like a literal salve. And so I've expanded this work to now include workshops in public parks, also virtually. I'm hosting archiving classes this summer. I saw some of my students are here, which is so sweet, where I'm teaching Black and Brown, queer, and trans people how to archive, how to build their archives. So taking a note from Kathleen's revolutionary activism, and giving the tools for people, specifically our community, to like create and remember ourselves and remember for those who can't is really important. And lastly, this last image was literally taken last week by my friend Stephanie Rodriguez, who asked me to help her archive her children's art. So now we're getting like Inception-y with like the archive and the art. So Steph, I'm Titi to like 4 of her kids, and she has saved every single piece of artwork. And so now I'm venturing into children's art and like working with families to preserve the memories, specifically their children's art. Caleb is like 6 years old, talking about he's an artist. And we want to encourage him. And so my practice has brought me to intergenerational spaces, from people that I do not know, like in pop-up spaces, to working with seniors and helping them with their family archives, to now working with my own community, my friends and their children, to preserve their artworks. But this is just a little snapshot of my work. And I just wanted to just give props to where it all started, and to really honor chosen family, queer kinship, when thinking about family, and how it has literally been life-saving for me. If it were not for these works, and if it were not for my community, my chosen family, I would literally not be here today. So shout out to the beautiful magic and the beautiful connections made in queer family and queer kinship in that. So thanks y'all so much.
Hi. Okay, so now I'm gonna be reading the poem that I wrote for this for this work. I wanted to mention a little bit that I kind of took a little bit from my the experience of my work in poetry as one of the books I'm writing right now, the poetry books I'm writing. I kind of divided it, I'm sorry, in 3 parts. And the first part is identity, and I talk a lot about my formation as a person and the people around me, and how they influence me. So I kind of took a little bit of that, and also, like I said before, how I saw Kevin's work and how I kind of feel that he sees his work, and that's how I came up with this short poem. I'm gonna start with the English one first, and then I'm gonna read the translation in Spanish. So, a topography. I press my palms to the shore just to feel close to home. I put feet to sand to shorten the distance. I am tethered to the memory of whom unraveled in water before me and those who will after me. I am made up of my mother's land, built up like archipelagos. I was born from volcanoes, and I have bathed in my ancestors' soil. All of the shared beings circulating through me, from the ghost of my grandmother's embrace to the mountains' familiar places, I take their faces with me, and I rejoice. Una topografía. Coloco mis palmas a la orilla para sentirme en mi hogar. Presiono los pies en la arena, así acorto la distancia. Estoy atado a los recuerdos de quienes se han desmarañado en las aguas antes de mí y los que se desmañarán después de mí. Estoy hecho de la tierra de mi madre, formado como los archipiélagos. Nací de volcanos y me bañé en el suelo de mis ancestros, todos sus seres compartidos circulando a través de mí. Desde el fantasma del abrazo de mi abuela hasta los lugares familiares en las montañas, sus rostros llevo conmigo y me regocijo. Eso es todo. Gracias por la oportunidad otra vez.
Thank you so much. This is Ezra speaking. Thank you to everyone for sharing all about your practices and for touching upon a lot of the questions that I already kind of was, wanting to ask. So I want to just for a brief moment, see if anyone here wants to ask each other any questions or just share any responses to one another of like what came up for you in the presentation. And then I think it would be great to invite people who are here to ask us questions. I think you can do that through the Q&A icon on the bottom of the Zoom screen, as well as we might be able to, I think that's the best way to do it, but just message the administrators if there's an issue for you with that. Okay, so yeah, I just want to share that it's been amazing to see the different ways that we are all thinking about archive and photo and text. And I think that is a really important through line, with Kevin. I think you making such specific titles was something you and I talked about also, as this was a whole new body of work of, wanting to, of course, obscure the figures in with the sand in the Islotes series, but then through text, right, through the titling of it, you're also giving us context. And I find that to be a really beautiful balance. And Stephanie, you were just sharing, obviously, with like going through writings of Audre Lorde, but also then in the kind of archiving of like writing down and marking. I think that's been something I noticed as a really important part of your practice. Obviously, with Noah and my work as Brother Sick, we use text kind of on top and with images that connect to one another and also connect to different times and space. And obviously, Keishla, just sharing all of your beautiful words right now in also response to a visual prompt, right? Of knowing Kevin's practice, but also from your own like archive in your memory and of your history and of what's your surrounding. So that was just a comment I wanted to share of another through line that I didn't see. And Kevin, yeah, do you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I definitely, it's not necessarily a question, but also kind of like tagging along, like just a commentary. And in relation first to that you mentioned, I remember when I invited my sister to write the poem, the first thing that she asked me was, send me the pieces, but then also send me key words of your statement around the series. And that to me was very, very particular because it's not something that it's in my form of thinking when I'm talking about something. To me, I'm obviously being a very visual person, but then being in collaboration with my sister who like her MO is through writing, it was very interesting kind of how those two forms of thinking kind of collaborated with each other. And so I remember it kind of took me a while kind of like to think, and I was like, why is it taking me such a hard time? Like, because I know what I'm talking about. But it was just such an interesting combination, like the collaboration, not only through us, but through mediums. I also wanted to just acknowledge first with what Noah mentioned in his practice, just medical I don't know if I'm saying the correct word, paraphernalia, like the objects from the medical world becoming the archive itself. I also have been collecting medication bottles for almost a decade, and I still have not decided what I'm going to do with them, but there is like this desire of like, I need to keep them because I think something will come out of this. And then with Stephanie's, I mean, I absolutely adored it. Yeah, just everything that you presented to us. But I think in particular, and I think something that Ezra and I kind of been thinking a lot about, because our relationship kind of started as us meeting in a residency and becoming friends, and kind of seeing our growth through our own practices and throughout time, and just thinking about the archive as that community, thinking of the idea of community building as an archive itself. And yeah, I'm always kind of like the person that takes all the photographs in all my groups of friends, and they always make fun of me, and I'm like, we need to keep a tag of all of this, okay? Because this is our archive. This is what we're building, like that will kind of withstand. So yeah, I just responded so much to all of your guys' presentations. So yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, I would love to leave it to you guys if you want to say anything.
Thank you so much for that. That's really sweet. We could definitely chat more. And yes, like Ezra and I met, became friends, and here we are. Like, we constantly draw from each other's work. We're so inspired from each other, and that love of like community is built into the practice. Like myself, I can't divorce myself of community engagement. Whenever I do something, it's like I'm always thinking about it. Like, I'm always thinking about how to engage people and have a collaboration and like kind of an interdependence with community in creating art. And I found the title of the article that I would like to suggest everybody read. It's called Wholeness is No Trifling Matter, which is like a fire title. Black Feminist Archival Practice and the Spelman College Archives by Holly A. Smith. So definitely check that article out. It's really beautiful and really informs my practice as well. So thanks, y'all.
Noah or Keishla, do you have any responses to anyone?
I
Nope.
guess I just about what Kevin mentioned about the keywords and the photos, and I guess for me it was also like a type of archive, just to see what he wanted, and just to translate it into words what he was feeling and what he was seeing through these pieces. It was really important to me that the words that I use were hand in hand with what he was presenting. So that was why I kind of wanted those key points, just to be sure that what I was putting into words was something that it was correlating to what he was presenting. And like I said before, and I will keep saying it, I'm very honored to be working with him, and in this it's kind of like a new way to share our sibling bond. We never thought that we were working together because it is kind of different mediums. He's more he works more with, you know, installations and performance and his photos, and I work with, you know, writing. So we never thought that we could come together in a work, and I'm so happy that we could do this. And I guess it's a way to see for what we can do in the future also as siblings and as artists.
I really love that sharing of also what archives and also what kind of like creative collaboration can do for the future, right? Like that it opens up these possibilities for the future. And I think that's the thing with archives of looking back is also to look forward, right? And we all, in different ways, experience like that kind of I would say that maybe sometimes it's hard to look back for different reasons, right? Both for in our own memories, but also like if we're just talking about archives, for example, like not everyone has access to that, right? And you know, I think maybe just to point to something Noah points out in our kind of latest you know, photo works of like bringing the objects in, which are not necessarily like photographs, but sometimes objects are the things that we have as what connects us to, you know, past generations. You know, our family doesn't have that many photographs, you know, of that many generations back. So I think that's something very similar for many people. And so, yeah, thinking also about objects as part of the archive is really important. And like you mentioned, Stephanie, also like how it took another Black woman to identify like that Audre Lorde locks were also like this part of an archive, right? So how our bodies also hold all of that memory and what it can share and show us for the future. Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I think again in relation to that, I just wanted to add that I've seen just the what a ton of my friends are kind of also interested in talking about and are revisiting. It is a lot about both collaboration of family members and also the revisiting the archive. And I think it really has to do with the very hard times that we're living in. You know, it's very hard to kind of acknowledge what is happening in front of us. That we kind of going to the archive and kind of revisiting quote unquote an easier time, you know, can sort of become this sort of moment of rest, you know, and but it's been also been really interesting to see how a lot of artists are also collaborating with family members. You know, I can shout out, for example, Alex Dolores Salerno, you know, who is in the chat. Hi, Alex, who has begun to collaborate with their mother, you know, or my good friend Carlos Martiel, who currently has a show at El Museo del Barrio, his first institutional show, but it has also continued now. It's been creating performances that specifically include his parents as part of that performance. So yeah, it's just very interesting to see, you know, how and it's, you know, it's unfortunate, you know, that it's certainly like I think it's connected to a certain extent to the times that we're living at, you know, but that is allowing us to kind of hold our loved ones and our chosen people even closer, you know. So I think it's something worth noting and acknowledging.
Okay, so now is the moment where we can take questions from anyone who is attending this. You can do it through the Q&A box, but also we could invite people to speak. Sydney just came back on camera and will facilitate that.
Yeah. Hi, this is Sydney speaking. Yeah, if anyone wants to actually ask their question out loud, you should be able to request to talk or put it in the chat that you'd like to ask a question out loud. Otherwise, we can also go through the Q&A box, whatever is easiest for y'all.
So we're not garnering many questions because we gave all the information that anyone ever needs.
Exactly.
I think anyway, we only have about 5 more minutes. So I can also prompt us with a couple of questions, but I want to also open it up to any of the Baxter Street staff. If you have any questions, as people who work in the photo and lens-based world.
Yeah, I actually would love to ask, I guess specifically Ezra and Noah. I'm really interested in how you all balance your like personal practices and then also a collaborative practice. And I was wondering if you could speak to a little bit like how you delineate those and how you decide like if a piece or an idea is something that makes sense to explore collaboratively, or if it's something that fits more into one of your individual practices, or if you'll like take a go at it both as individuals and together. I'm just really interested in that dynamic and how you approach it.
Ezra, please interject as you see fit. I think I will say individually, I think we both are very comfortable in our own media. Like I know Ezra has worked mostly in painting, illustration, some sculpture, and I lean more towards photo and print based work. And I think it's actually more thematic where we collaborate. Ezra and I tend to align politically and ideologically about how we think the world should work.
Or shouldn't work.
Or shouldn't work, yes. And so I think there are more thematic concepts that Ezra and I try to approach collaboratively. Independently as an artist, I feel more comfortable approaching deeper and more intense topics with Ezra by my side. I think it just is on a very basic level, it's nice having solidarity with someone and not necessarily approaching a daunting topic alone. That's like a really, really important part for me about having a sibling collaborator. And I think also Ezra is a really good foil for me sometimes. So I think when I'm trying to create something individually, I can also bring that to Ezra just as another set of eyes and as another person. And then it either organically happens where it works, or I get frustrated and I do it on my own. So I think there are, it's not as cut and dry, but I think there are more, topics of disability, illness, politics. Those are things that Ezra and I try to tackle together, both through art and in the real world through direct action. And I think personally, I'm more, I look to Ezra just as an artist who inspires me, and just like that informs me personally, just when I'm making a painting or a photograph or print. I just keep that as inspiration or influence in the back of my head.
And I'll just add one more thing to that, which is like the delineation of like what is my practice and what is Brother Sick is almost only for the kind of art world, of like the quote unquote art world of like, if I'm applying to a thing, does it make sense to include the works that Noah and I made together alongside works that I made, discreetly by myself? Sometimes it does, sometimes it does. Like I applied to something and they're like, everything has to be, you have to be the sole maker of something. So I was like, okay, there goes that whole part of my practice. So it's actually kind of this interesting space of like us pushing up against, I think, also the kind of individualistic sense of the art world that I know all of us here do not appreciate. And also the competitive ways that happens. Like also sometimes, often people will be like, oh, so you and Noah will split the artist fee for participating. We're like, well, actually, no, right? It took us also some time to be like, no, you know, like we are individual people who need the fees, but we are making the work together. It's like this interesting thing of how it plays into the art spaces, or like the art world, or the professionalized world. And then in terms of making, it's we have a very specific process that those who know us laugh at us for it, because it's often at like, you know, 11 p.m. at night, through the late evening, and then it's like text messages and voice notes and things that like are not the kind of classic studio practice that I think maybe individual artists have in that sort of way. And so I really like that. For me, it's also a way to have multiple ways of making, when also making is hard, like as a disabled person, as a tired person, as someone who like doesn't always feel inspired by like the purpose of art making. It's also helpful to have that, like noticing that kind of foil, or like a space to do that in and with. Yeah, but yeah, Brother Sick is also just like my art practice. So I don't really differentiate. It's just sort of, you know, sometimes it is called for. Yeah.
Hi, it's Jill Weinstock. I'm just going to interject. I don't have necessarily a question, more of an observation that it's been a really wonderful and fruitful conversation to hear such a collaborative and partnership in all of your practices. And I think as artists, working in isolation can be really challenging. And so the fact that you have these, you know, relationships with a shared history and shared people, I think is a very beautiful thing. And it was really wonderful to hear you all address that and talk about it and support one another. So thank you so much. And thank you for such an engaging conversation and for giving us all of your time and allowing us to kind of get a little snippet into your dynamics. It's really been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. And this is Ezra speaking again. We just have one kind of open comment in the chat. And then I think we'll have maybe a moment to respond if anyone here wants to just respond to that, but then we'll have to kind of close out. So this is from Alex Dolores Salerno. Such a beautiful talk. I'm feeling so inspired. Thank you all. Something that's coming up for me is how the archive can become a path for collaboration in an art world that prioritizes the individual and gives very few opportunities for collaboration/collectives. I'm wondering what collaboration means for everyone. Perhaps this is a conversation for another time. Yes. Ezra is talking about as I'm typing, and I'm really feeling the power of collaboration from you all. Thank you for that comment, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.
Okay, so yes, to be continued, clearly. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate the space that you all made for sharing your work, and also to everyone who has attended in real time, but also for those who might join us in the future for the recording of this. And I'll pass it to Kevin.
Yeah, again, thank you so much, Noah, Stephanie, everyone at Baxter, Keishla, Ezra. I don't know if it might be, I mean, I'm happy to kind of share our upcoming programming just for everyone that's listening. Just the final programming will be on July 25th, and it will be an in-person walkthrough with Ezra and myself. We're going to be at the gallery talking about the show. So yeah, I hope you can also make it there. And then one last thing, she's gonna hate me for it, but I just wanted to shout out my sister because her birthday is on Thursday. So happy birthday. That was it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here. It was really a pleasure. And yeah, as we've mentioned a couple of times, we will archive this on our site if you want to revisit it in the future. And Kevin's exhibition will be open until July 31st. So you still have some time to see it. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.